Yes.
And the hurricanes come in and knock it down. So what
Yeah.
effect would
It would be devastating. So what you'd do if you were in charge of the Georgia Environmental Government Agency, you would say if you're going to build a nuclear power station, which might be on the coast because it needs a lot of water to cool, it would have to be so strong as to withstand a Category 5 hurricane. Otherwise, the bulldozing away of Chernobyl and spreading radioactive stuff around would be very, very devastating. So you'd have to be very strict. And that's why nuclear power is so expensive, principally because of the cost to make sure it's safe. Yes?
Would there be any way of cooling a hurricane before it hit shore to make it weaker?
There was some thought a long, long time ago. Number one, anything mechanical is out, because remember I started off by saying in one day there's as much energy used by a hurricane as half the energy of the United States in 6 months. So the one, years and years ago, it was thought that if you had lots of plains and you put dry ice to make more rain, that it would tend to fizzle out. And it's called cloud seeding. And it was never proven to work. Excuse me. But the other thing too, people were very, very worried that what happens if they were wrong and a Category 3 storm became a Category 5 storm? And they weren't quite sure which way it would go. So that idea has had some theoretical merit, but was never really put into practice. Yes?
Can you try to fly planes around to try and get other planes from other airplanes?
Can you fly planes around to?
Like fly planes to counterattack other?
It would take a lot. Hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of planes. Just remember that the energy in a hurricane in one day is the same compared to flooding and storm surges. They are not particularly deadly. Yes?
Do you see that the northeastern part of hurricanes are more powerful?
Yep.
Why is it?
Two reasons. One is due to the movement of the storm moving, and the air converges in this region. The air comes together much more strongly in this region, which means that there's a lot more air being lifted up and a lot more energy being produced. Yes, sir?
hurricanes coming towards a state, say it was in Texas, which is such a big state, and it was going through the whole state, the more stuff that it destroyed, like
Good point. Hurricanes are so strong that the buildings that they knock over, they don't even notice. But what they do notice, over the ocean, there's not much friction on the surface. And once they get over land, it's rough. And they tend to slow down, so the winds tend to slow down. And also their motion tends to slow down, so they tend, therefore, to have lots of rainfall, but they are not moving very quickly, so there's an enormous amount of rainfall. And so yes, it's not what they knock down, but just land or difference between land and ocean and friction. Yes? Well, there are hurricanes which form here. They tend to form in the Atlantic Ocean because of disturbances that form over Africa and move across. And the prevailing winds in the tropics are in that direction. So they move with the wind, if you would like. So the storms here form off here, and they tend to move out to the Pacific Ocean, moving towards the west. Okay, risk to Georgia. And you've seen this picture before. One of the interesting things about Georgia is that its continental shelf is very, very extensive. And the shallower the continental shelf, the greater the impact of wind piling up water. I suggest you try that in a bathtub. You get a small amount of water in the bottom and blow on it, you build up big waves. But if the bathtub is completely full up and you blow on it, not much will happen. So think about that one for a while, next time you have a bath. This is the continental shelf. It's all the way out through here. So if a storm, to answer your question, if a the storm were to hit here, it could be a devastation for this particular region. So we have over 75 to 100 miles of continental shelf, all with savanna. To give you an idea that if there were a Category 1 to a Category 4 storm, this is the depth of the storm surge. I put this in here to remind me how deep 30 feet is. See, this is the level of the building that you would have. So these are the storm tracks from 1890 to 2005 on the Georgia coast. And you can see that in the 1890s, there were 3 major hurricanes that struck the Georgia coast. Since then, there have not been any. There have been glancing blows, but no direct hits. And the damage that was caused in New Brunswick was substantial. And this is the storm that went through Brunswick in Category 4, and that would have caused in this region through here a very, very large build-up of water. This would have mean the winds would be this way here and that way there. This is the path of the storm. So in this region through here, you would have had a strong storm surge. So the risk to Georgia, 3 landfalls since 1851, but none since 1900. So as the number of storms increase in the Atlantic Ocean, the probability of one hitting Georgia is less likely. Let's go back one step here. I can find one of the interesting things about why storms don't hit here is many storms move up, and the indentation of the coastline is such that it's less probable that you get a storm landing here. But a case, as I mentioned, it can happen. It has happened a substantial number of times in the past. I'm going to come back to sea level in just a moment. One of the problems is the barrier islands are at extra risk. Beautiful barrier islands we have, swamps on the coast. The barrier islands, which were to the south of New Orleans before Katrina, are completely gone, completely washed away. And maybe over a period of 100 years, they'll grow back again through sedimentation. Sea level rise. This is the areas that we expect with a sea level rise, and by the end of the century, these areas will disappear into the ocean, including most of New Orleans, all of southern Florida. And notice here, this is the Georgia coast, and large areas here will become part of the ocean. The interesting thing about this is that you superimposed upon the sea level rise, of course, a hurricane, and therefore the storm surges will tend to be moving further inland in these regions. So this is a substantial problem. The question I will ask you in a moment, is there anything we can do about it? So, I want to give you some idea of some adaptations. What do you think we might be able to do about storm surges? You have a place like Tampa, Florida, which is possibly susceptible, or Savannah, Georgia. What can we do? How many of you have been to Charleston, South Carolina? It's right on the ocean. And there you have beautiful homes and water just a little bit behind this one little wall. So is there anything we can do? What's the simplest thing we can do for protecting against storms? Yes?